morning, everyone. Thank you for coming. We have an important announcement to make. I'd like to first start by just introducing the people that are standing around me here. Directly behind me is my Chief Assistant, District Attorney Jay Boyarsky, who's been actively involved in this investigation since its inception. Standing to my right is John Chase, who's in charge of the District Attorney's Public Integrity Unit. John has led many successful public integrity investigations, including the prosecution, conviction, and jail sentence of former Board of Supervisor George Shirakawa for illegal campaign materials and false personation. Standing directly to my left is Deputy District Attorney Matt Breaker, who has won our office's prestigious Attorney of the Year award twice. DDA Breaker has successfully prosecuted some of our office's most complex and significant cases, including previously unsolved cold case homicides, and most recently, the conviction and life sentence for 3 correctional officers who murdered jail inmate Michael Tyree. And then I have Lieutenant and DA Investigator Lacey Hyland, who have led the team that have interviewed dozens of witnesses, collected a lot of evidence, and executed multiple search warrants. In the District Attorney's Office, we have one standard of justice. The mission of the District Attorney's Office is to vigorously pursue justice in a way that is fair and treats everyone equally under the law and with respect. In the DA's office, we prosecute defendants based solely upon what they did, not who they are, who they know, or how politically connected or politically powerful they are. That is the basic promise that we make to this community: due process and equal treatment under the law for everyone. We devote considerable resources to prosecuting violent and dangerous criminals, including drug traffickers, robbers, rapists, child molesters, gangsters, and murderers. Justice and public safety are critically important to the security and well-being of our residents and are preconditions for economic vitality and growth. We also vigorously prosecute economic and white-collar crimes, including real estate and securities fraud, theft of trade secrets and intellectual property, insurance fraud, wage theft, environmental dumping, and identity fraud. All of these prosecutions are important. However, the District Attorney's Office has another unique and critically important purpose: safeguarding the public's trust in the democratic institutions which are the pride and glory of our country. Holding public officials accountable for their misconduct is an essential part of our mission and our duty to the people of Santa Clara County. A large campaign donation, a contested election, and CCW licenses. Our investigation began shortly after the general election in November of 2018, sparked by an inquiry from the Metro Silicon Valley Weekly about executive security licensing and an extremely large campaign donation, which was reported in public findings. Our investigation found that weeks after the scheme was hatched, the conspirators settled on a $90,000 donation in exchange for 10 to 12 carrying concealed weapons permits, known as CCW licenses. After submitting 7 CCW license applications to Sheriff's Captain James Jensen at a meeting, AS Solution Manager Martin Nielsen donated $45,000, the first half of that $90,000, to the Santa Clara County Public Safety Alliance, or PSA, an independent expenditure committee supporting Sheriff Lori Smith, who at the time was locked in a hard-fought race for re-election, both in the June 2018 primary election and the November 2018 general election. On October 4th, 2018, less than 1 month before the November election, Mr. Nielsen handed a $45,000 personal check to the PSA's Assistant Treasurer, Attorney Christopher Shum. This $45,000 campaign contribution dwarfed all other campaign contributions and represented more than half of the funds raised by the PSA before the election that year. The money was spent less than a week later to support Sheriff Smith's re-election. The second installment of $45,000 was forestalled by the DA investigation. This investigation revealed the sad reality that at the Santa Clara County Sheriff's Office, there are two policies for those seeking CCW licenses. For the average member of the public, no matter how pressing or justified their need, if they follow the procedure laid out on the Sheriff's website and mail in an application, it will not be reviewed. Instead, it'll be tossed in a filing cabinet and forgotten. However, if you are, in the words of Sheriff's Captain James Jensen, a VIP, then he'll meet you at Starbucks, personally review your application, and help you fill it out. You don't even need to live in the county, which is required by law. And Captain Jensen will even waive the mandated firearms testing at a gun range. Grand jury indictment. Yesterday, the Santa Clara County grand jury indicted the following individuals for the following crimes. Sheriff's Captain James Jensen. 1, conspiracy to commit bribery. 2, bribery. 3, conspiracy to file a false CCW application. Counts 4 through 10, falsifying public records. Maximum exposure, 11 years and 8 months in state prison. Attorney Christopher Shum, Michael Nichols, Attorney Harpal Nahal. Count 1, conspiracy to commit bribery. Count 2, bribery. Maximum exposure, 4 years in state prison. What will now happen? The transcript of the grand jury proceedings is being prepared and will be publicly available in a few weeks unless it's sealed by the court. These 4 defendants will be arraigned on August 31st at 9 a.m. in the Hall of Justice. The DA's office is continuing to investigate more crimes and more individuals related to Sheriff Smith's issuance of CCW licenses. The investigation is active and ongoing. We will follow the evidence where it leads. We are not done. As the district attorney, my concern is not whether the sheriff grants many As the district attorney, my concern is not whether the sheriff grants many or few CCW licenses, but whether they are being granted or denied for the wrong reasons. CCW licenses should not be given in exchange for campaign donations. They should not be for sale. We'll now take a few questions.
Mr. DA?
Yeah.
You say we are not done. You have a time frame? I mean, I know it'll take you where you want, but what are you looking at? I mean, how much longer is this going to go on? This has already been more than a year.
Repeat the question, sir.
I'm just going to repeat the question. So,
Absolutely.
so the question is how long the investigation's not done. When will it be completed? It's been going on for more than a year now. So the investigation began in December of 2018. COVID closed down our courts and our criminal grand jury beginning in March, and so that delayed us about 5 months in terms of where we would be in this investigation. In terms of the time frame, I expect more charges will be filed against more individuals in the coming weeks, as well as the coming months.
Did James Jensen act on his own, or was he being directed by Sheriff Smith in any way? How complicit was he?
So the question is, was Captain James Smith acting on his own? Was he being directed by Sheriff Smith? Is she complicit in this? Because the investigation is continuing, it's not appropriate for me to comment on other individuals and what their role or culpability may or may not be.
Are you reviewing the communications between the captain and Sheriff Smith?
So the question is, are we reviewing the communications between the captain and Sheriff Smith? What I can tell you is that up to this point, this has been a very comprehensive investigation. We've executed multiple search warrants to gather things like phone records, internet records, computer records, and we've interviewed dozens of witnesses to get at exactly the subject that your question raises. Yeah.
We did an analysis and found that if you donated to the sheriff, you were 14 times more likely to get a CCW. You saw the piece. Will you comment on that? I mean, the odds show that if you donate, you're more likely to get one. Does that play into this?
Well, I think what I would say is the question is an ABC report from, I think, NBC.
It's all good.
Forgive me. Forgive me. From a local TV source said that did an analysis and found that if individuals donated to the sheriff's advisory board or made campaign donations to the sheriff, they were 14 times more likely to get CCW applications. What I can say is that our investigation found that there were really two paths to getting CCW licenses. And if you are an average person and you followed the procedures laid out on the sheriff's website and you mailed in your application, no matter how justified or appropriate it would be for you to receive a CCW license, it just got thrown in the garbage and was never looked at. But if you made a campaign donation and if Captain Jensen, knew you to be a VIP, then you got special treatment and you got a CCW license. And that's wrong. I don't have an opinion as to whether a sheriff in our county or other counties should give many CCW licenses or few CCW licenses. I don't have an opinion about that. I'm not the sheriff. But as the district attorney, I do have a very strong opinion about the basis for which CCW licenses should be given. And one of the bases for which they absolutely should not be given is in exchange for campaign donations. That's bribery. That's what we've charged in this case.
During the course of your investigation, did you see any examples of hubris, overconfidence in any of the players in trying to allegedly pull off the scheme?
So the question is, during the investigation, did we see any hubris or overconfidence in the perpetrators in trying to carry out the scheme? That's a difficult question to answer. I think what I would say is that while there certainly were efforts made to cover up what was going on and to obscure the crimes of bribery and to commit bribery, those efforts were not ultimately successful, and we were able to uncover what was happening, and the grand jury indicted these individuals based on that evidence.
Is the grand jury still impaneled, or will this investigation continue with them, or will you impanel a new grand jury?
That's a good question. Grand juries tend to sit for anywhere from 6 to 8 weeks, and this grand jury has been, sitting for a few weeks and has heard some other cases. As to whether or not this is the grand jury that hears further evidence or whether it's a new grand jury, I don't know at this time. There are two different ways that we can proceed to bring criminal charges. One way is filing those charges by way of complaint, where we simply, fill out a form and say, we believe, with probable cause that these crimes were committed. A second way of bringing criminal charges is what we have done thus far in this case, which is going to a grand jury, which is made up of 12 to 19 members of our community, and presenting evidence to that grand jury and letting that grand jury decide whether or not there's probable cause to believe that the crimes have been committed. The grand jury in this case found that there was probable cause that these 4 individuals committed these 10 crimes, including bribery and conspiracy to commit bribery. Yes?
Since you have to work with the sheriff's department,
I can't hear you.
can I take off that?
Just say it really loud.
Since you have to work with the sheriff's department, did you consider turning the case over to like a state agency or the state attorney general?
So the question is, given that the district attorney's office works with the sheriff's office, did we consider turning the case over to a state agency? So I have a few comments about that. Number one, we did speak with the Attorney General's office to ask the Attorney General's office whether there was some kind of conflict such that we should not handle this investigation, but rather the Attorney General's office should. And the Attorney General's office said, no, there's not a conflict and you should handle this investigation. Secondly, it is true that the district attorney's office, prosecutors in the DA's office, and sheriff's deputies in the sheriff's office work closely together and have done so for many years. Our 2 offices have worked together on many high-profile cases, including, for instance, the investigation and prosecution of Antolin Garcia, who kidnapped Sierra Lamar, the 15-year-old girl from Morgan Hill. But I would also point out that the mission and purpose of the district attorney's office is to hold public officials accountable. That's what our job is. Several years ago in my term, we investigated, prosecuted, convicted, and removed from office a member of the Board of Supervisors, George Shirakawa, who was the chair of the Public Safety and Justice Committee and had great influence over the budget of the district attorney's office. Nonetheless, we proceeded based on the facts and evidence in that case, prosecuted and convicted him and removed him. So there's many other elected officials that we have investigated and prosecuted for various crimes, whether on school boards or city councils. And that's really the role and function of the district attorney's office, is to enforce the law equally and fairly, regardless of who that person is or how powerful they are.
Is your sense that
So the question is Captain Jensen acting alone? These policies and procedures related to CCW applications have been in place for many years in the Sheriff's Department. So is he acting alone, or is he acting at the direction of someone else in the Sheriff's Department? And I think that the answer to that is, number one, the investigation is continuing. We're not done. Number two, some of the questions that you're asking and some of the questions that other reporters are asking may be answered when this grand jury's transcript is unsealed in the next few weeks. I imagine that'll answer some questions. It may raise other questions. And we're going to follow the investigation where it leads and hold everyone accountable who committed these crimes and find out really the truth and the scope about what happened. That's the focus of this investigation, is finding out the truth, finding all the individuals that were responsible, and holding everyone appropriately accountable for this criminal activity, and holding everyone accountable for this criminal activity.
Should Sheriff Smith step down? What's your message to her?
So the question is, should Sheriff Smith step down? What is my message to her? I don't have an opinion as to that. And I don't have a particular message to her. I do have a message to the people of this community, which is that this DA's office will vigorously pursue the truth wherever it leads and hold everyone appropriately accountable regardless of who they are, how well connected they are, or who they know.
Is there any, I mean, some of these have to do with campaign donations, but there's no charges of, campaign finance issues. Is that something maybe down the line, or is this not violating any campaign laws?
So the question is, there aren't any charges related to campaign donations and whether different campaign finance laws may have been violated. And the investigation is continuing, and there will be more charges filed against more individuals, and that may answer your question.
Anything else? Is that it?
Thank you.
Thank you very much,
Thank you.
everybody.
Thank you very much.
Anybody want